Florida's top retirement towns? Overpriced, overcrowded, and over it. There's a town in this list where the average home costs less than a new Honda, and it has natural springs so clear your stress will drown itself. You're not supposed to know these places exist, and yet they do. Quietly, patiently, waiting for someone smart enough to ask the second question. Everyone's racing to the same 5 coastal cities like there's a prize at the end. There isn't. Just HOA meetings and chain restaurants. You want space, serenity, maybe a town where people still wave, but the internet keeps giving you Boca, the villages, and heartbreak. Today, we're counting down 10 Florida towns no one's telling you about because they're too busy keeping them secret. One has an underground art scene hidden in an old fishing village. Another, you can buy a lakeside cabin for under $180,000 with deer as neighbors. Think you already know the best retirement spots? Prove it. But then, what nobody tells you is, choosing wrong could cost you thousands. Or worse, force you into another HOA potluck. Wait till you see the one where time moves slower, on purpose. Subscribe so you don't miss the next cheat code for smarter living. Or don't. Just don't say I didn't warn you when the good towns are gone. Let's break it down. Number 10. Inglis. In 2001, the mayor of Inglis, Florida signed a literal decree banning Satan from town. That's not a metaphor. That's small-town energy with biblical commitment. Inglis is the kind of place where nothing happens, and that's the point. Median home price? $145,000. Violent crime rate? 68% below the national average. Median age? A very relaxed 52. You're not here for job markets or high-speed anything. You're here to retire, or at least pretend you are while fishing every weekday. What nobody tells you is, Inglis is one of the few Florida towns that hasn't been overrun by influencers, condo developers, or Margaritaville-branded soul extractions. It just exists, like it always has. Quiet, a little weird, and borderline mythical. Sure, there's no Target within 30 miles, but you can buy smoked mullet from a guy named Wayne who built his own dock, and probably his own boat. Gas is cheap, neighbors are nosy but helpful, and there's a decent chance someone has tried to baptize their lawnmower. Cost of living? 12% below US average. Rent? Around $950 for a 2-bedroom. Vibe? If swamp core and anti-anxiety meds had a love child. It's not for everyone, especially if you need Wi-Fi that doesn't cry during a thunderstorm. And can we talk about the humidity for a second? Inglis doesn't have summer, it has moist. You don't dry off, you marinate. I once saw a squirrel slip on moss and fall into a puddle with the dignity of a soap opera exit. Welcome to Florida, where nature is trying to reclaim your kneecaps. And if you think Inglis is odd, the next town makes peace and weird feel like an Olympic sport. Number 9. Melrose. Melrose is the kind of town where a retired nurse runs the best art gallery from her porch. And honestly, that might be the most honest use of a porch in human history. Located in north central Florida, Melrose sits on the edge of Lake Santa Fe, a 6,000-acre freshwater escape hatch where people fish, kayak, and occasionally debate existential philosophy at the farmer's market. Here's what matters. Median home price? $195,000. That's about what you'd spend on a used Sprinter van and a midlife crisis. Cost of living? 11% below the national average. Crime rate? Lower than most towns this quiet, and you're more likely to be hit by falling Spanish moss than a robbery. Culture? Weirdly rich. Melrose is packed with working artists, musicians, potters, and probably someone weaving existential dread into quilts. And here's the kicker. People choose to live here, not because of job opportunities, there are none, or nightlife, good luck, but because Melrose feels like a secret the world forgot to ruin. What living here actually means. Retiring in Melrose is like exiting capitalism without having to explain yourself. You get front porch concerts, art shows at the fire station, church bake sales that will ruin your diet and your emotional defenses. But yeah, you'll have to drive 25 minutes for a good grocery store. And the internet? Let's just say your Zoom call might freeze mid-sentence, but you'll still make eye contact with a duck. I moved to Melrose to slow down. I didn't realize I'd slow everything down, including my Amazon delivery. Local comment from a Facebook thread too wholesome to snark on. Melrose has 1 gas station, 2 antique stores, and more artists per square foot than Brooklyn in 1997. If Etsy had a zip code, this would be it. Okay, real talk. Can we retire the term hidden gem? Melrose isn't a gem. It's a feathered fever dream with pottery wheels. And the bugs? Aggressive. I saw a mosquito the size of a Yorkie. It tried to file a claim on my property taxes. But here's the thing. Nobody in Melrose seems stressed, which is suspicious. Like, what are they not telling us? Picture this. It's Thursday. You're drinking strong coffee on your screened-in porch while a neighbor's blues guitar drifts through the oak trees. You hear a rooster, then silence. Then someone yelling, "The kiln's ready!" You haven't worn socks in 3 weeks. You feel alive, and maybe a little sunburned. Would you trade fast internet for a slow life on the lake? Yes or nah? Drop it in the comments, and be honest. Fiber optic is tempting, but have you seen a heron land in real life? Number 8, Madison. Let's get one thing straight. Madison, Florida is not trendy. It's not gentrified. It doesn't have artisanal candle shops or oat milk that costs more than gas. What it does have? A courthouse that looks like it's held secret since 1840, churches on every corner, and porches, like actual porches, with rocking chairs, sweet tea, and occasional ghost sightings. This is where Florida took a deep breath and forgot to exhale. Madison's been named one of Florida's best small towns more than once, but somehow no one outside of a 40-mile radius knows it exists, which might be the point. Real data dump, but make it matter. Median home price, $145,000. Yes, that's not a typo. It costs less than a new Tesla steering wheel. Cost of living, 16% below the national average. Crime rate, surprisingly low for a town with this much history and this few security cameras. Job market, yeah, don't retire here expecting to consult remotely. Your Zoom call will crash every time a bird lands on a power line. Lifestyle, home to North Florida College and a community that reads the local paper, in print. It's Florida, pre-internet, and there's something kind of beautiful about that. The only thing that moves fast in Madison is gossip. Seriously, if you sneeze at the diner, someone across town is already praying for you before dessert. Let's talk about how hot it gets. Madison doesn't have summer, it has open oven door energy. You'll go to check the mail and return questioning every decision that brought you here, including wearing black. Oh, and the mosquitoes? They don't bite, they negotiate. I had one politely ask me for directions before draining half my soul. But picture this, it's Sunday morning. The church bells ring down Main Street. A kid rides past on a bike with no shoes. You're sitting on your porch, sweating, sure, but in a peaceful, earned it way. You've got a local peach in one hand and a fan in the other. You're not in a hurry. You're not anywhere else. Living in Madison isn't about showing off. It's about showing up to the fish fry, to your neighbor's weird garden party, to the high school football game even though your grandkids live in Ohio. You will become someone who grows tomatoes and judges them harshly. You might pick up square dancing. You might buy a banjo and never play it. But what you won't do is spend your retirement stuck in traffic or overpaying for luxury condos with pool rules and TikTok noise. Madison is where your money goes further. Your pace slows down and your neighbors know your name and your dog's name. It's not exciting. It's something harder to find. Consistent. I moved here for the peace. I stayed because they make the best banana pudding on earth. Overheard at Ken's barbecue, probably. Fun fact, Madison has more churches than stoplights. So if you sin while driving, odds are you'll be forgiven before you hit the next intersection. And no, Madison doesn't have oat milk either. But it does have a woman named Gladys who will sell you fig preserves and a firm warning about snakes in the garden. Which, honestly, feels like a better retirement plan. Be honest, would you rather retire in a town with 5 breweries or 5 porch swings and 1 legendary barbecue shack? Let me know in the comments and defend your choice like it's the last plate of ribs on earth. Number 7, Cedar Key. Cedar Key is what happens when a fishing village refuses to grow up, refuses to sell out, and somehow ends up more charming because of it. This place once tried to be a booming port, then burned down, and then said, you know what, let's just do clams and sunsets. Honestly, solid choice. Real stuff beneath the postcards. Cedar Key sits on the Gulf, 3 hours from anything resembling urgency. On paper, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. Here's the data that makes retirees look twice. Median home price, around $285,000, which is wild for a place this ocean adjacent. Local economy, nearly 90% of Florida's farm-raised clams come from Cedar Key. That's right, this tiny town is the Beyonce of shellfish. Crime rate, comfortably below the national average. The only break-ins here involve pelicans violating personal space. Cost of living, about 6% lower than the US average. Population, roughly 700, which is either your dream or your nightmare. And here's the upside no one expects. Cedar Key is one of the last coastal towns in Florida where Old Florida isn't a marketing lie. It's just life. Local quote, "If you're bored in Cedar Key, congratulations, you're normal." The job market is tiny, but hey, if you're retired, your job is basically keeping your flip-flops from floating away at high tide. Let's talk storms for a second. Cedar Key doesn't have weather, it has plot twists. One minute it's blue skies and pelicans posing for photos, and the next minute the wind is like, surprise! Surprise, surprise! Character development! Also, the smell of low tide is an experience. Not bad, not good, just aggressively ocean flavored. If scent had a texture, this one would be sticky. Picture this. You wake up to the sound of gulls and the soft slap of the Gulf against stilts. You shuffle onto your balcony with a mug of coffee, staring out at water so calm it looks bored. A fisherman waves from his boat. A pelican eyes you like it's judging your breakfast choices. And for the first time in years, you actually feel retired. In the good way. The consequences of living here. Living in Cedar Key comes with emotional side effects. You will eat enough fresh seafood to question your former devotion to frozen shrimp. You may become that person who knows the tide schedule by heart. You will, without realizing it, start speaking 20% slower. And financially, your retirement dollars stretch further because there's literally nowhere to spend money impulsively. This is the quiet that other towns try to manufacture. Here, it just exists. Cedar Key is so safe that locals leave doors unlocked. Meanwhile, in some major Florida cities, people lock their cars while sitting in them. See the difference? Imagine yourself on a dock at golden hour. The air is warm but soft. You can hear flagpoles clicking in the breeze, a distant outboard engine humming, and the wooden planks creaking under your chair. This is retirement without noise, without clutter, without price tags screaming at you. Just open water, open sky, and a town small enough to remember your coffee order. And if Cedar Key is Florida's slow-motion coastal dream, the next town figured out how to blend history, mystery, and porch-light gossip into a full lifestyle. You're gonna want to see this. Number 6. Monticello. Monticello, Florida. Not to be confused with that Monticello. This isn't Thomas Jefferson's estate. This is moss-draped mystery in the Big Bend region. The kind of town where the local theater is allegedly haunted, and no one really denies it. They just shrug and say, yeah, that's probably Margaret. Now, if you're looking for a place to retire with overpriced brunch spots, TikTok teens, and overpriced farmhouse-style condos, keep scrolling. But if you want history, front porches, a slower beat, and yes, maybe a ghost or two, Monticello might be whispering your name. Literally. Here's the part where the numbers slap you. Median home price, just over $200,000. And we're talking historic homes with character, not drywall boxes. Cost of living, 14% below the national average. Crime rate, lower than Florida's average. If something does go wrong, odds are a chicken saw it happen. Population, approximately 2,500, meaning everyone is on a first-name basis, even the stray cats. Rent for a two-bedroom, around $1,000 per month, and that might include a wraparound porch. What living here actually feels like. Here's what no one tells you. Monticello isn't flashy. It's not trying to be the next hot zip code. It's still mornings, still air, still neighbors who've lived on the same land for 40 years. And that stillness, it hits different after decades of deadlines, traffic, and HOA emails written in Comic Sans. Yes, the economy's slow, and if you need a big city, Tallahassee is about 30 minutes away. But Monticello gives you breathing room, like actual breathing room. As in, sit on the porch and watch a thunderstorm kind of room. Monticello is one of the few places left where a $200,000 home comes with wood floors and actual woodpeckers. Try finding that in Miami. Let's talk about the town's obsession with ghosts. Monticello is known as the most haunted small town in Florida. There are walking tours for it. And you know what? Fine. But when your hardware store has 2 documented paranormal incidents, maybe it's time to ask some questions. Also, it's humid. Not Florida humid, library in a sauna humid. You will sweat in places you didn't know had pores. Imagine this, it's twilight. The cicadas are doing their thing. Your dog is napping under a magnolia tree. You're sipping bourbon, listening to vinyl, and your neighbor is telling you a ghost story for the 4th time. You don't even care. It's better than cable. What makes Monticello special isn't just the history or the affordability. It's the feeling that you've landed somewhere with roots deeper than your to-do list. In Miami, you pay $3,000 a month for a 700 square foot condo and 0 eye contact. In Monticello, you pay less than half that and get a house and unsolicited peach cobbler from a neighbor named Loretta. You don't need $1 million to feel rich. You need space, crickets, a breeze you didn't pay a utility bill for. You need Monticello, where the loudest thing at night is your ceiling fan. And if Monticello is haunted by history, the next town is blessed with rivers, springs, and enough accidental philosophers to fill a canoe. You won't believe who's floating next. Number 5. Dunnellon. The hidden reality of Dunnellon. Dunnellon is one of those towns that sounds like a typo and lives like a postcard. Tucked between crystal clear rivers and mossy woods, it's equal parts sleepy and stunning. The kind of place where people go tubing on Tuesdays and wave at strangers like it's legally required. You've probably never heard of it. That's fine. Dunnellon prefers it that way. But here's the kicker. It's got natural springs that look photoshopped, a local economy that's not collapsing, and real estate that hasn't caught the influencer disease yet. Data you can actually use. Median home price, approximately $190,000, which is what a half-bedroom costs in Tampa. Cost of living, 10 to 12% below the national average. Recreation level, off the charts. Rainbow Springs State Park is right there. Job market, small but stable. Mostly healthcare, schools, and convincing tourists to rent tubes. Crime rate, low enough that your biggest worry might be losing a flip-flop to the river. Local quote, Dunnellon is what happens when a river gets bored of running and decides to vibe instead. Some places brag about walkability. Dunnellon brags about floatability. And frankly, that's a better retirement metric. Let's talk about the tourists, because every summer the entire town turns into a flotation device. They come with tubes, coolers, Bluetooth speakers, and 0 spatial awareness. You'll try to enjoy a peaceful float, and suddenly you're next to a guy named Chad who brought a 12-pack, a portable speaker, and regrets. But hey, at least the water's cool while you silently judge him. Living in Dunnellon slows you down, on purpose. You swap Netflix for spring-fed rivers, malls for mom-and-pop diners. It's peaceful but not boring, affordable but not cheap. And the locals? Surprisingly cool once they realize you're not just here for spring break and selfies. Financially, it's one of those towns where your retirement dollars don't just last. They stretch so far you start questioning everything you used to spend money on. In Orlando, you pay $2,200 per month to hear screaming children every day. In Dunnellon, you pay under $1,000, and the only screams come from egrets chasing lizards. A better deal, honestly. Would you rather retire in a place where you float down rivers, or one where you drown in HOA fees? Tell me in the comments. No wrong answers, just revealing ones. Like this video, or I'll send you realtor listings from Miami until you cry. Subscribe now, because accidentally retiring in the wrong Florida town is a mistake that mosquitoes will remind you of nightly. Number 4. Havana. Havana, Florida. Not Cuba, no passport required. Just 15 miles north of Tallahassee and light years away from noise, chaos, and overpriced brunch. This is a town where time slows, roosters roam, and antique shops outnumber fast food joints. Not trendy, not trying to be. Havana is a place that feels like your grandma's porch, comforting, slightly eccentric, smells like biscuits and old wood. And honestly, that's kind of the dream. It used to be a tobacco town. Now it's a magnet for artists, retirees, and people who, let's just stay here after one visit. The real world data, not just vibes. Median home price? Around $180,000 for a real house with a porch, not a beige box with HOA fees. Cost of living? Approximately 13% below the national average. Crime rate? Very low. You're more likely to get hit by a falling wind chime than robbed. Population? Approximately 1,900 humans and an unconfirmed number of free-range chickens. Rent for a 2-bedroom? Around $950 to $1,100, depending on how close you want to be to the local quilt museum. Yes, that's a thing. Local quote, Havana's the kind of place where your neighbor brings you jam and 3 conspiracy theories. 2 of them might be true. You know a place is chill when the most heated public argument in the last decade involved whether the hardware store should carry organic mulch. Here's the thing about Havana. There is no Starbucks. None. The closest Frappuccino is a 20-minute drive. But what they do have is a place called Wanderings that sells antiques, houseplants, local honey, and a vintage hat that once belonged to a preacher or a magician. Unclear. Also, beware the antique shops. You walk in for a candle and leave with a Victorian mirror and 3 stories you didn't ask for. Imagine waking up to quiet, real quiet. You step outside and it's cool in the shade, sunlight breaking through Spanish moss. Someone's baking something 2 houses down. A wind chime rattles in the breeze. You're barefoot, holding coffee, and for the first time in months, maybe years, your jaw is unclenched. Havana is less a town and more a gentle exhale. Retiring in Havana means spending less and living more. You get space, neighbors who remember your birthday, art shows where people still clap. Financially, it's stable, not flashy, but that's the whole point. Havana isn't selling you a lifestyle, it's just quietly being one. You won't be fighting tourists, or lines, or HOA presidents named Brad. You'll be gardening, or learning to paint, or sitting under a tree, wondering how life got this soft without asking your permission. In Fort Lauderdale, peace and quiet cost $1.3 million and come with construction noise. In Havana, $180,000 gets you peace, quiet, and a chicken named Darla who visits every Tuesday. You don't move to Havana to show off. You move there to show up, at the farmer's market, at your neighbor's porch, at life. Havana isn't flashy, it's familiar. It's that corner of your brain that just wants to breathe. And the numbers? They're not screaming, buy now. They're whispering, you can afford to rest here. Number 3. Floral City. Floral City, Florida. Sounds delicate, doesn't it? Like a postcard with butterflies and inspirational quotes. But here's the twist. Floral City is tougher than it looks. It's a town that wears its name like a disguise. Behind the blooms, a place that's part swamp, part soul, and part small town soap opera, with live oaks draped in Spanish moss and stories older than your 401k. This isn't some planned retirement community. It's real. It's raw. It's where people fish in the morning, swap produce in the afternoon, and gossip under porch lights like it's a sport. And yes, it's beautiful, but not in a luxury condo with a fake fountain kind of way. More like dirt roads, vintage trucks, and camellias blooming where the Wi-Fi drops. Median home price, approximately $175,000. You read that right. Cost of living, 15 to 18% below the national average. Population, approximately 5,000, depending on how many snowbirds are pretending to be locals. Job market, you're not moving here to climb the ladder. You're moving here to burn it and build a chicken coop instead. Crime rate, low. The scariest thing here is running into your neighbor at the Dollar General in your pajama pants. Floral City's idea of nightlife is a bonfire, a cooler, and arguing over who makes the best boiled peanuts. And honestly, that's better than bottle service. Okay, real talk. The bugs here are ambitious. I once saw a mosquito with a neck tattoo. You will get bitten. It's not a question of if, but how often, and whether it happens before or after you finished your sweet tea. Also, if you're allergic to pollen, pack Benadryl like it's gold, because Floral City doesn't suggest its name, it throws it at your sinuses. Retiring in Floral City won't put you on a billboard, but it will put you in a community, a real one, where people say hi, where your mechanic is also your neighbor, where the guy who runs the bait shop plays guitar at the Sunday market, and he's actually good. Financially, it's one of the few places where you can buy land, peace, and dignity, all without a sales pitch. Emotionally, it's for people who want roots, not just routines. In Naples, you need $700,000 to pretend to enjoy HOA meetings. In Floral City, $175,000 buys you acreage, privacy, and maybe a neighbor named Darlene who'll teach you how to can peaches and avoid gators. Floral City isn't for everyone. It's not curated or sleek or ready for Instagram, but that's why it works. Because not everyone wants a retirement full of apps and appointments. Some people just want a porch, a garden, and a town that lets them be unbothered. And if you think Floral City is peaceful, the next place runs on whispers, river mist, and possibly barefoot wisdom. Number 2. High Springs. If you've ever said, I want peace, but I don't want to die of boredom, congrats. You just described High Springs, Florida. It's like someone took a crunchy little mountain town, dipped it in spring water, gave it a southern accent, and quietly dropped it outside Gainesville while no one was looking. This isn't some fantasy retirement brochure town with fake waterfalls and margarita machines on wheels. No, High Springs is real and weird in the best way. Imagine crystal clear rivers, forest trails, and a downtown that looks like it's been frozen in farmhouse chic since the Carter administration. Except, you know, in a charming way. Let's talk real life. Median home price, approximately $265,000. Not bad for a place with literal springs in the name. Cost of living, 10 to 12% below the national average. Crime rate, low. Like, your neighbor leaves their kayak out overnight kind of low. Rent, you'll find 2 bedrooms for $1,100 per month if you move fast and don't mind your landlord knowing your blood type. Quality of life, outdoor life, small town charm, and no HOA breathing down your neck for growing tomatoes in the wrong direction. It's like if a Florida town and a national park had a hippie baby who sells honey at the farmer's market. So basically, you get nature, fresh air, and a working class that can actually afford to live there, which feels illegal in Florida. Now, the downside? Every third person here is either a yoga instructor, a goat farmer, or somehow both. And the local coffee shop closes at 2 p.m. sharp because apparently caffeine has a curfew now. Also, parking in downtown is a little like emotional Tetris. It looks easy, but somehow ends in tears and a pulled hamstring. Picture this. You're floating down the Itchituckney River in a tube. Birds chirping, sun dappling through the trees. Your phone? Somewhere in a dry bag because nobody's texting you here. Later, you hit the local diner, eat fried green tomatoes, and talk to a guy named Earl who swears he saw a UFO, but only on Wednesdays. And honestly, you believe him. What you get if you actually move here. If you retire in High Springs, you're not just buying a house, you're buying your time back. You'll trade traffic for tree canopies, stress for springs, and if you're lucky, HOA fees for homemade jam. You're still within reach of real healthcare, groceries, and civilization. Gainesville is 25 minutes away, but you're not paying $600,000 to live next to someone who yells at ducks. Remember when I said you don't need $1 million to retire well? High Springs is that sentence with a backyard and a porch swing. And yes, people here really do name their chickens. If you can't handle a hen named Beyonce, this might not be your place. Number 1. Micanopy. If someone told you the best place to retire in Florida was a tiny town with no traffic lights, a population under 700, and wild peacocks wandering around like they own the place, you'd think they were either lying or selling crystals. Welcome to Micanopy, the oldest inland town in Florida, and possibly the chillest, weirdest, most surprisingly perfect spot to never work again. So what's the deal with Micanopy? This place feels like a novel that forgot to end. Think moss-draped live oaks, dusty antique shops, wraparound porches, and a town so slow-paced it makes Mayberry look like Manhattan. It's not a tourist trap, it's not a condo wasteland, and you'll never see a Jimmy Buffett tribute band unless it wandered in by accident. What Micanopy is, though, is peaceful, affordable, and weirdly real, like a secret handshake between Florida and your inner Thoreau. Stats that actually matter. Median home price, around $260,000, and you might get a garden and ghosts. Cost of living, approximately 14% lower than the national average. Crime rate, low. If someone steals your lawn gnome, odds are they'll bring it back and apologize. Rent, 2 bedrooms in the $1,000 to $1,200 range. Just don't expect modern to mean anything newer than 1978. Vibe, retired artist meets retired botanist meets I was only supposed to visit for the weekend. Local quote, living in Micanopy is like waking up in a Southern Gothic movie, but everyone's too polite to be the villain. So yeah, you can trade HOA fees, endless traffic, and $9 oat milk lattes for a town where the loudest thing is frogs, or sometimes ghosts, but mostly frogs. Here's the thing, Micanopy is gorgeous, but if you're the type who needs Target within 5 minutes, this town will break you. You want brunch? Good luck. You want yoga? Bring a mat and hope. There's one tiny cafe, 3 antique stores, and everyone closes before 4 p.m. Not because they have to, but because that's just when the vibes say stop. Also, good luck spelling Micanopy the first 3 times. It's Micanopy, not microscopy, thank you. Living in Micanopy means less noise, fewer bills, and more actual life. You're 20 minutes from Gainesville if you need real hospitals or college town energy. But out here, it's porch swings over parking garages. And yes, your retirement check might actually stretch further than your patience used to. Remember when I said you don't need $1 million to retire well? Just the right zip code? Well, this is the zip code, with a side of hummingbirds. Oh, and fun fact, Micanopy has a cemetery older than than most states. So yes, you could move here and retire forever. Or, you know, forever. Like this video if you've ever considered faking your own death and moving to a town with 0 chain restaurants. I won't ask why, I respect it. Subscribe for more towns that are cheap, peaceful, and weird in just the right ways. It's like prepping, but with better snacks and less panic. So if you move here, just remember, you didn't retire, you disappeared like a legend.